this is the place, the station, you know, where you make those connections that you learn from. Because if you're a curious learner and you have the ability to apply what you learn, you can move forward, always forward. If you're not willing to learn, you're stuck in the sand. You're stuck, you're going backward. And the world, my friends, is moving forward, evolving. Today's guest is very special. His name is Walker McKay, all the way from Columbia, South Carolina. He's going to teach us how to cut the BS in sales. Wouldn't that be novel? Get to yes quicker. Walter, welcome to the Unstoppables.
Thank you so much, Bill. It's an honor to be on your show. I hate to start this way. My name is Walker with a K. I get called Walter a bunch, but my name is actually Walker. That's probably the nicest thing people call me. So
you sound like a celebrity. Like Walker McKay, you know, Texas Ranger.
That is exactly. I'll take that. If you can remember it that way, that makes sense.
And Walker, we were talking before we came on about the glitches of electronics and how new systems and how, you know, video. Well, there's my first glitch. So.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, it's perfectly fine, right? I tell people you're going to fail, expect to fail, get over it. There's a guy named Bill Sims who wrote a book called Blue Fishing. Are you familiar with the book? I recommend it. And he says nobody drowns from falling in the water. They drown from failing to get out. So you got to be willing to fix it after you fail.
You know what? My second book is with a big publisher, and I should probably try to revise that before it's out, because my book is Fail More.
I love Fail More. I think that's awesome.
You got to keep failing. Man, that's how you learn.
If you're not trying, you're not failing.
This is where I think we're going to have fun. You're reading your bio. This is where I think we're going to have a lot of fun. You'll say whatever, whenever, which is pretty close to what I'll do.
Yep.
So we're going to have some fun with that. You also have something, and we talked about this. It's the no BS way to yes. Greg, why don't you tell me give me a little background, 30,000 feet about Walker, okay, and come right to the granular level. Give me a little background.
Sure. So I was somebody that went into sales for the reasons that a lot of people do. In college, I was a mediocre student. I was great at college and kind of shitty in school. Everybody in my family had been lawyers forever, and I realized that it was law school, not law college, so I wasn't going to go to any of that stuff. And my friends and maybe my parents said, you know, you can talk to anybody, you should go into sales, which I will tell you is terrible advice. Just because you can talk to people, that's bullshit. That means you bore a lot of people. I would tell you, if you're going to go into sales, learn to listen, which I was not very good at. I also, Bill, I'm going to just point it out, I want to get no BS to get to a decision, because sometimes no is the right decision, and I'd rather hear a no quickly than to hear a no after 6 months or 6 years. I want to get to know. I want to disqualify people. If the answer is no, I'm perfectly cool with that. I may tell them no first. So anyway, I got into sales, or I went into banking, then I went into commercial real estate sales. I was mediocre, ended up hiring a coach who helped me see that I was an excuse maker. He asked me why I wasn't making $1 million a year as I was interviewing him. And he said, and I said, well, because the economy in Columbia, South Carolina, and, you know, blah, 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 I'm 28 or 30 or whatever it was. And he said, suppose I told you I thought those were excuses. And it was like somebody took a fucking knife and just ran it right through me. And I was like, ugh. And then he said, Walker, where else in your life are you making excuses? And it was like he pulled the knife out slowly, and I watched my guts come out. And I was like, oh, I live in a shitty apartment, and my mom says I'm never going to get married because I'm an asshole and all those things. So that was kind of the day I grew up.
You got great visuals. Just let me tell you.
Thank you very much.
You know what you said, and for all the sales managers listening, for all the people that are in sales, what you said is platinum. You know how many, probably have better stats on this than I do, but I experience this daily in my other company, which is corporate insurance.
Yep.
And it's a sales organization. How much time and money, energy, emotional capital, and real capital do we expend chasing what we think or what we hope people are saying, just because we don't have a pipeline of any other options? We're desperate. Anybody looks good on the altar. Let's get married. They don't want to marry. Cut it now, right? And move the hell on.
Yes.
I love that.
So I'm big into that, and I've watched some of your stuff, and you're a big believer in disqualifying. Me too. What we know is that most people aren't ready to buy, and I want to play the long game in sales. The long game in sales is how do you build trust with people, and maybe it's not the right time for them to buy now, which I'll say, you know what, it's probably not the right time, or if they say it's not the right time, I'll agree with them and let them go. Because when I call them back in 90 days, my belief is your customer's world changes every 90 days. The world changes every 90 days. And whatever you're focused on today, it'll be different 90 days from now. I think back 90 days ago, and my father died this summer, and I was dealing with grief and all this bullshit and terrible stuff, just trying to hold it all together. And if somebody called me about a business thing, I couldn't have managed it. And today, coming out of that fog, right, and I'm focused and I'm growing, I got all kinds of new things going on. So I want to be able to, if somebody had pressured me 90 days ago to do something and I said, I can't do it, I probably would feel guilty or bad now and wouldn't take their phone call. So I want to be able to get to know faster than they do. So in 90 days when I call back, or 180 days when I call back, they take my call, at least knowing I'm not trying to wrestle them to the ground. I want to be straight up with people. No bullshit. If it's the right thing, let's do something. If it's not, let's not. Move on. No big deal.
2 gold nuggets. Right there. 2 gold nuggets. Play the long game.
Yep.
When you play a short game, people smell 3 things on you: fear, desperation, and greed.
Oh, yes.
Play the long game. And the other thing you said, love this, because it's something I've done forever. The push away. This may not be the right time. This might not be. And it's amazing when people get rejected. They tend to try to pull you closer because, well, this may be the right time. So there's a cognitive dissonance that's happening because, wait a minute, you're not coming on telling me how great you are, all the great things you can do for me. You're actually pushing back and saying, I may not be the right person for you.
So our buyers right now, we give them all the control because we realize they can walk away and go do something else. So we can't fix them. And so what if instead our pipeline was strong enough that this was a buyer today, we've got 8 or 18 or 80 meetings lined up afterwards. I don't care if this guy buys or not. Some will, some won't. So what? Who's next? The less time I spend talking to somebody who's not going to buy from me right now, then the more time I got to go do something else, like talk to the next one. So the way I can be able to walk away is say, you know what? I got a whole big old pipeline. If this one doesn't buy, it's not going to change my life. If they do buy, it's not going to change my life. I got more to do.
I'm giving you platinum on that one. That goes above gold.
Thank you, baby.
Yeah, but how many times have you experienced this pain where you have a salesperson who doesn't have anything in the pipeline? So it's the end of the quarter. They got to try to make quotas for average, but they got to try to make that quota, and they're trying to turn this chicken shit into chicken salad.
Yep.
And the fear, desperation, greed, you wash out. Everything comes from that activity up front in your pipeline. Options, everything. Because
just playing the long game, right? It's if you're there, that's your fault because you didn't do shit 90 days ago.
How did you? There's some similarities here because I went to school and I actually got my master's degree at Penn State, at the undergrad at Purdue. Worked real hard at Purdue to get into Penn State. Went to Penn State and played around. So my recurring nightmare is I really didn't graduate. And I got to open the drawer and see if I did.
Right.
So I used to work at a bar, did all that fun stuff like you did. Applied to law school, never went, and because I looked in the mirror and thought, can I really suck out 3 more years of this stuff and go through it? And the answer was no.
No.
And I fell into sales, and I didn't want to do it. It was insurance, and that was distasteful to me. I didn't want to do that. But I ended up just connecting with people and made it a game. And that was the thing. I didn't look at the money, just had to validate myself. And, it's kind of my story. You've been doing this for 15 years. So in the 15-year period, what was the epiphany? What was that turning point for you to say, this is what I want to do, this no BS stuff, because I've seen enough of this shit out there?
So it's a long, sordid tale, but when I hired the sales coach I was in commercial real estate, he really helped me kind of focus and understand how to do things differently. I was a broker, and I was medium to low successful, and he helped me understand the concept of why people buy, the concept of pain, that people do have pain. There's a reason, an emotional, compelling reason. And in the commercial real estate business, there's a lot of it, but you got to work. And so I ended up figuring out my niche was with buyers, this is a long time, I'm old, I'm 53, so I've been in sales since 19.
You look good for your age, by the way.
Huh? Thank you. And I don't dye my hair despite rumors. But I'd learned that there are some buyers out there that were afraid that was going on in 1990 or so was all these transactions where people were selling their farms and people building subdivisions on it. I guess that happened in California. It sure happened here. So you could do a 1031 exchange where you could take the money and reinvest in commercial real estate and not pay capital gains taxes, which were 30, 40% at the time. So guys in the business did that all the time. But if you weren't in the business, you could get hammered by buying crap. You would buy shitty property to replace what you had. You might have been better off paying taxes. So I was able to find people in those exchanges that really wanted help, that wanted advice, and I charged them to take them on as clients. Everybody else did that work for free, and I helped them figure out how much it costs you if you get screwed. How much time do you want to spend on this? Do you know the lawyers? Do you know the CPAs? Do you know the engineers to make sure this is the right deal? And what I figured out was how to get paid to advise them. And then if they bought something, I got half a commission. But part of my job was to say, maybe the stuff that's out there right now, the time frame you got to buy it is shit, and you should just pay your taxes and invest in something else. The people who told me that wouldn't work were my competitors who said, why would they pay you? We'll do it for free. And I said, I don't know. And then they said, you can't do that. And I said, no, you can't do that. That's what sales is. I went from selling commercial real estate to having somebody pay me to get away from their fear, to fix a problem they were worried about. And if they weren't willing to spend $5,000 to hire me, I was pretty sure they weren't going to spend $600, $700, $800 to buy a piece of commercial real estate or more. So
if you don't
hit for me,
if you don't place a value on yourself, your expertise, no one else is going to value you. People that do things for free, yeah, they do things for free. All right, you better look at the product.
And they say, oh, well, this is what everybody else does. Well, if everybody else does it, why the fuck are you doing it?
Exactly. Now, let me say something to you, because we're going to do a little deeper dive. Here's the thing about pain. And we always talk about find the pain in my company. I found this, Walker, that people are so afraid of change that they'll actually accept known mediocrity over what they perceive to be an exceptional product or service or performance.
Happens all the time.
All the time. So you're not only finding pain, but in your long game, you're building through consistent action trust. You're building. Yes. You're not asking for it. Only a fool grants it. You're consistent in your performance. See, you got a believability, authenticity factor I can feel. You're coming at me, you're just like, boom, boom, boom. And if you don't know, you just said the most disarming, great words in sales. I don't know.
I don't know.
Sometimes you don't know. Let's not waffle and bullshit and prevaricate. Don't know. Disarming stuff. Give me the platform, because I would try to find you. So tell me, where do we find you? What are you doing? How can we get
the way somebody can find me, I've got one of my things that I have now is something called the No BS Sales School. It's an online sales training program designed for individuals who are like me, that when they came along, there was no decent training at a reasonable price that they could find. And so if you go to www.nobssaleschool.com, you'll find information. I do training twice a week on Zoom about how do you find pain, how do you make more money, how do you get out of your own damn way, how do you disqualify people, and it's online training. There are no contracts. It's $127 a month. What I'm trying to do is people that don't have a coach, don't have that thing that say, damn it, how do I get to the next level? There are no excuses not to do it. If you can't spend $127 a month to make yourself better, then you're not going to get any better.
You know, finding that or attracting that coach that shoved that metaphorical sword into you and pulled it out, and you had the life-changing experience, is really probably, to me, making an assumption, one of the reasons why you want to be a coach. It's changed your life, and you're a believer. And
so what happened was I worked with him for 3 years. He was my coach. And then he called me, and I'm doing very well in the commercial real estate business. And he called me and said, I hate to do this to you. He said, but I'm going to grow my business to other places. And this is back before Al Gore invented the internet. And so before we had all this stuff. And he said, I need somebody else that thinks like you, that understands like you, that can help me grow this business. And so he hired me. And I worked with him for 11 years. I'd referred him a shit ton of business from people that I knew that needed the help. And so the first thing I thought was, this will be easy, which was hard as shit. It's hard as hell to sell this. But then we built a really, really nice business, and we grew, and we helped a bunch of companies, kind of South Carolina based mostly, and had a bunch of different offices. And then I failed again because I failed to keep the relationship with him. And he and I kind of got at loggerheads about different things. His vision was different than mine. And what I've learned about myself is I don't like being number two. I may be good at being number two, but I friggin' hate it. I like being number one. I'm not very good at being number one, but I like being number one. And so, interesting story, if I may add this, I decided, you ever been around somebody that frustrates you so much, even the way they eat a turkey sandwich drives you crazy? Have you ever been around somebody that just kind of been like that? You ever had a feeling like that about somebody?
All the time.
Well, that guy he and I were like that. And so I realized I didn't want to live my life like this anymore. I had a 3-year non-compete, and I had no other plans. But I knew I had to make a change. So I talked to my wife, and I was miserable. And so I went to go have lunch with a client that day. This is classic. And nobody knew except for my wife that I was going to leave. And I had a scheduled meeting with him. I went and sat down with him, and he greeted me like I like to greet people. You can use this, by the way. I sat down. He beat me to it. He said, "You look like shit." And I was like, "Ugh." And I said, "Oh my God." I said, I am scared to death. And he said, "About what?" And I said, "I'm going to quit my job." He said, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "I'm miserable. I'm not happy. It's not going the way I want it to go. I need to make a change." I basically vomited all over him. And I said, "He's been an asshole. I've been an asshole." I said, "It's 50% my fault, 50% his fault." And I look up, and what do I see but the stop sign? And I said, "What?" And he said, "Nope, you're wrong." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "It's 100% your fault." I was like, "Huh?" He said, "Walker, until you accept 100% of the responsibility for the failed relationship, you will be mad at the wrong person." And I was like, shit, I'm making excuses again. And I said, "You're right." I said, "How the hell did you learn that?" He said, "From you, when you called me on that bullshit about 6 months ago." Ooh. So I had to then go and figure out what to do, because I had a 3-year non-compete. I said, "You keep the clients. They're all yours. I can't do anything with them anyway." And I ended up getting hired by a couple of my clients to be an outsourced VP of sales to help them run their sales teams. I did that for three years. And then an old client of mine, sorry to make this so long, called me and said, "You have good stuff and you need to be able to share it with people outside of the circle you're sharing it now." He said, "You need to spread what you know nationally because salespeople are sick and they need your help." And I was cynical and sarcastic and said, "That's a freaking great idea. How the hell do you do that?" And he said, "I know how to do that." He said, "Do you want to do that?" And so he helped me start the No BS Sales School and come up with the idea of using video and Zoom and marketing across the country. So that's what we've been doing, and that's been the fun part. And it's fun for me to get to talk to people all around the country who want help, who want to be better, just don't have a resource to go to that's accessible.
You've had the strength to overcome one of the fundamental flaws of human nature, which is denial and delusion. Excuses. Ever since the dog ate my homework, it's the client, this change, it's never about me. Unless you accept point of responsibility at that point of contact, what is to be is up to you to make happen. You ain't ever going to make it in 6. It's always going to be.
I would love to tell you that I've conquered excuses. I think I still make them every day. But what I want to be is more aware. And I give everybody around me permission. If you hear me make an excuse, call me on it. I will not be angry. I will hug you.
That's great. I work hard on assumptions because I'm going to see things through my own confirmation bias. So I'm going to challenge people to say, if you think that I'm making an assumption here, and it could be, let's get together and talk about it. So yeah, I think you're very similar that way. And
I think you're exactly right, and I love the way you do that. I also know that the people you hang out with the people I hang out with have similar ideas, right? And so sometimes I got to go outside of that circle because we're all going to self-talk ourselves. And that's what happened in the commercial real estate business. It was the economy. I was hanging out with my loser friends while the guys who were working were in their office with the door closed.
Yeah. Oh, I got one for you. So when you evolve as you have into that top sales position where you're chasing number one because you need to be number one. You don't want to hear dissonance. You want people who kiss your ass. You don't want to hear the negative. You don't want to pick up the next phone call and get rejected because you just did $1 million sales. So you don't want to do that, but that's the stuff you have to do. Pick up the naysayers, get involved. Here, sometimes you're full of shit. Be able to accept it, look inside and say, you know what? Valid, not valid. Check the box. Let me say something else we have a similarity in. I'm 62. I do not dye my hair.
Good. I'm glad I got a chance.
But I'll tell you, I'm starting to get gray on the show. Not this one, just doing it. Let me dive into some of the fun stuff. What does Walker McKay define? This is going to be great. I know you're going to be one of the best ones I've ever heard. How do you define in your own terms, not that side of the bullshit, how do you define success?
I'm lucky that the thing that I find, if at the end of my life, if somebody at my funeral or the 5 people at my funeral can say, that guy took the time to help me figure something out I couldn't figure out on my own, that to me is absolute touchdown, the Super Bowl winning touchdown, is if I have 5 people that can say, that guy helped me figure something out that changed my life. That to me is success. It's the money is great, right? But that's going to come. It's how do I get down to somebody where they'll be honest with me and I can really get to the root of the issue and help them solve it, and that changes everything. And that to me is the juice.
I can say this after doing hundreds of these shows, that is the common trait among those people who really making that difference, leaving that legacy, and and when you're gone from this earth, people remember Walker McKay made that difference for me.
So what you're saying is that wasn't the best answer you've ever heard.
Sorry, that's where you're not exceptional. You're in there with it. Well, you are, because that's the elite of the elite. But I'll give you the one that people trip over. I'll tell you right now. This is the trip over one. All right, I'm going to give you this one. What was your one? You don't get 3. What was your one defining moment that took you from here to here, changed the whole axis and trajectory of who Walker McKay is?
So this was a cool story. I'm glad you asked this. I haven't been able to tell this story in a while. When I got out of the commercial real estate business, when I worked for a big company in commercial real estate, and I was a mediocre producer, low mediocre at best. And I left that company and I started my own company and did it for 3 years. And I did fine, but I was out of that radar, right? I was out of their sight. And my biggest head trash, the biggest crap I had was, when I left there, I was not a success. And those people who were there would see me as not a success, right? And I was fucked up about that for a while. I'd see them and be embarrassed or whatever, because that's a real macho business, blah, blah, blah. Well, ironically, that company had a regional meeting out of state, and I was invited to be a speaker. So of the guys I worked with, there were 20 of them that were going to be there, and there were another 80 people, and I was the speaker to talk about how to be better at sales, when I had failed at that business. And here I was. So I was so afraid I almost vomited. I had my little talk written up, and I was scared as shit. I was going to crap myself as I walk in. I'm so nervous that they're going to go, bullshit. And as I walked out of the elevator to walk in, I said, you know what? Fuck this. And I took my paper and I threw it in the trash. And I said, I'm going to go tell them the things that I did not do that made me mediocre at best. I'm going to go tell them what I was too afraid or scared or didn't know to do. And if they don't get anything from that, fuck them, that's their fault. And so I got up and stood and I said, I am embarrassed to stand in front of you today as somebody who failed in your business. And now I've been asked to come and tell you how to go sell commercial real estate. I said, anybody that knows me would laugh if they saw me sell commercial real estate. I said, here's what I'm going to tell you. Here's what I didn't do. And maybe here's what you successful guys are doing, that maybe the guys in the middle and the bottom, if they understood, they'd get the hell out of the business and go do something else easier, or they would learn it. And so I gave them 5 or 6 things, and I got a damn standing ovation. And what I realized when I stepped off that stage, I'd slayed my dragon. That was the shit I was most afraid of. And at that point, it was over for me.
That story is bringing goosebumps, because it not only took balls. I mean, that's balls. Just to say blank, but to go out and then execute, that's real. And that's the connectivity, because we all try to put that mask on, be something we're not. But to get out there and say, fuck it, put down the script, I'm going to tell you what I'm not. I'm going to tell you
what I sucked at.
That is, man, I can use that in my next talk. But it'd like be 3 hours instead of the hour they paid me for, right?
I know, right.
And you go across the country giving. I like to hear one of your talks. You go across the country. You're actually paid to give these type of talks now, right? Isn't that great to be paid for something you love to do?
It is. I tell people one of my favorite activities. I'm a lifestyle hunter, right? So I hunt year round, right? But I'm an event fisherman. So I go to Maine with 4 guys every summer for a week. The first week in June, we go trout fish way up in the North Maine woods. And I love that. We land on a float plane way in the middle of nowhere. We stay in this camp. It's perfect. We get drunk every night. We're 100 miles away from a paved road, way away from a town. Nowhere to go, no Wi-Fi, no electricity. Stand on a trout stream, catching fish with nothing but just the sound of the river. It is, to me, is the most awesome thing. And what I tell people is I would trade that to be on stage for an hour in front of salespeople that didn't know what to do.
Adrenaline rush.
I'd rather be there.
Adrenaline rush. I grew up in Western Pennsylvania, living that Mark Twain existence.
Yes.
Fishing, hunting, baling hay, doing all that stuff. But there is nothing, it's like sex, nothing that exceeds that adrenaline rush, except for sex maybe. In front of those people. When you get that feedback.
I can talk for longer.
I love that.
And sometimes 3 times in a day.
What you gotta do is just take some 5-minute breaks and say, okay, hang on a minute, and then resume. It helps. But man, we digressed. But I'm gonna have to let you go. I would love to have you come back.
Yeah.
And because we're just starting, I think, to scratch the surface of what you can do to really help people in sales, and help people overall, getting rid of excuses, cutting the bullshit, being able to do something. Walker, this is probably the next topic we should talk about. How did you learn, because it's a learned skill, because I love to talk as well. How did you learn to stop talking and start listening?
Ooh, God.
Toughest one.
My father taught me that. My father died. I told you this summer. He was a lawyer for 45 years, and people would say that he was a great conversationalist. And if you watch him in a conversation, he doesn't talk much. He asks questions. And he taught me early on, he said, Walker, work very hard at being interested, not so hard being interesting, which was boom. So quick, funny story to wrap up. My last couple months of Dad's life, he was kind of in his own head. He didn't talk much. He was 95, And I did a talk down in Palm Beach, and I had this just glorious experience that paid me a shitload of money. I couldn't believe they paid me to go down there and give this talk. And I come back, and Dad, just kind of in his chair, and he hadn't talked much. He just kind of mumbles. And I said, I want to visit with him. And so I went, and I said, Dad, I want to tell you about this thing in Palm Beach. And I told him the story. And he looks up and he goes, you talk too goddamn much. The most words he said in 3 weeks. I'm like, fuck.
My mother used to tell me, I hope you get paid for talking because that's all you do.
But the money's to be made in listening, and you listen and then you get invited to talk, right?
Absolutely. Because there's a fear base. We have that whole fight, flight, freeze. You show up and start throwing up in a prospect or suspect's office, shut down.
Yep.
You let them start talking. Where are you from? Let them talk. Be interested, like you said. And I love the part where you're a curious learner and you keep learning. That's platinum to me. I want you back. And I've never asked any guests that on the air, but I do want you back. We've got to figure out a time. And one day,
I'd love to be. That's great. Thank you for scheduling.
His name is Walker McKay. Sounds like a celebrity. He is. He's a rock star, kick-ass, no BS sales guru who can help you. You've been on the Unstoppables. You made the show what it is, Unstoppable. Thank you, Walker.
Thank you, Bill, very much. You're the man. I've enjoyed this very much.